we have 4 presentations in this um, in this parallel session. So we have Kazi Nazrul Islam, as I said, and then we have no, is this the one now? No, this one. Sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah. So we have Mr. Nuruzzaman from Khulna University. Then we have our second presenter, Sonika Islam from Eastern University. We have MD Nurul Qayyum, Bangladesh Army University of Engineering and Technology. And we also have Ashwati Shem BL Kopat from Jawaharlal Nehru University. So I'll be chairing this session. My name is Mohammad Mushir Rahman. I'm a senior lecturer at University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. So just for your kind information, we'll be having 10 minutes each for presentation, and then afterwards, after 4 presentations, we'll be having 10 minutes Q&A session. All right. So I'll be sending you a notification in the chat box after 8 minutes. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. So may I welcome MD Nuruzzaman from Khulna University. His title of presentation is Enlivening Bengali Nationalism Through Language Policy. MD Nuruzzaman.
Okay, thank you, sir, Mohammad Mushir Rahman. Before I begin, I would like to pay homage to the language martyrs who sacrificed their life in 1952, and also the martyrs of liberation war of Bangladesh. So this is the topic that, language was not my field of study. I started teaching in literary studies, but for a long time, I have found that, okay, we should do something on language. And this is my topic, Enlivening Bengali Nationalism Through Language Policy. So there are some reasons why I wanted to work on this policy. Few days back when I was teaching Emergence of Bangladesh, I found that there was an act in Bangladesh that was published in that was passed in 1987. So on the basis of the act, we are supposed to use Bangla in all sphere of life, but unfortunately we didn't find its application in anywhere. So that motivated me to work on whether we can revive Bengali nationalism through just acting that policy everywhere. In 1952, the language movement set the tempo of our liberation war. In other words, the language movement paved the way for the emergence of Bangladesh. And at that time, people seem to have integrative motivation for Bangla. So they felt for Bangla, they were emotionally attached to it. But after the liberation war, that is my observation, this stimuli is as if on the decline. So we need to find out why people are not going to have this why they do not feel like they used to feel at that time. So because of globalization and the rise of capitalism, the pristine respect for our culture, especially for our language, is not seem to be as cemented as it was found earlier. To revive this earlier spirit, we have to implement the language policy of the state in every aspect of life, by showing language as a part of our sense of belongingness. So I think that is the tempo of my paper, that we have to feel language as a part of the sense of our belongingness. And in my theoretical framework, I have tried to justify what is nationalism and how Bengali nationalism was built. So for my theoretical framework, I have taken the concepts of definitely our homeland. F. Salahuddin, in his book Bengali Nationalism and Emergence of Bangladesh. To him, nationalism is basically a territorial concept. It is the collective consciousness or feeling of people who inhabit within the boundaries of a particular geographical territory. The factors such as race, religion, language contribute to the evolution of national consciousness. the most crucial factor for the growth of national consciousness is the awareness of common inheritance. So that is the beginning of beginning factor behind my theoretical framework. And from Banglapedia, Banglapedia defines nationalism in this way that that is nationalism is of a people draws its inspiration and cohesion from the sense of belongingness and togetherness and consciousness of common identity, which contingent of on shared experience in history, geography, ethnicity, religion, language, and culture. So why I have taken a sense of belongingness, the fact behind is that though we consider ourselves a monolingual country, 98% of our people speak in Bangla, but still we have some ethnic groups, 10%. We have, so far I have found there are 9 more languages that people speak in our country, from Manipuri to Munda. So Chakma, so many things. So if we can ensure them that they also belong to this part of the country, I don't think that framing a language policy won't affect, even these minority groups also. Smith defines nationalism as an ideology of strict territory, and it concentrates the energies of individuals and groups within a clear demarcated homeland in which all citizens are deemed to be brothers and sisters, to which they therefore be united. So my fact is that, again here, Smith also in his definition of nationalism tries to focus on this sense of belongingness. B.M. Nurul Afsar, in his article, Bengali Nationalism, Muslim Identity and Bengali Nationalism, he defines Bengali nationalism in this way, that it is the political expression of national consciousness of the Bengali people who inhabit the ethno-linguistic consciousness of Bengal. Even Salahuddin Ahmed also defends in this way that it is the manifestation of pride in the history as well as cultural heritage of Bengal. So from that things, I have said this tempo that it is a sense of belongingness that by which we can redefine this nationalism. And for language policy, there are many more, it started after the Second World War to form national policy, especially for, multicultural countries. But since we have monolingual country, I tried to focus on the theories related to monolingual concept, especially here. I would like to focus on Spassky, who classifies 3 independent but interconnected components of language policy. These are language practices, language ideologies, and language management. So my focus will be on language management. So have we failed after 50 years of our independence and 70 years of our language movement? Have we failed to manage, this utilization of language? Nowadays language is also considered as a sort of capital. That is the concept of Bourdieu. Pierre Bourdieu in his essay Distinction, he clarifies language is some sort of capital. So have we failed to capitalize, utilize this capital or not? That is also another concern of my article. And finally, I would like to conclude with the theoretical framework with Tollefson's historical structural research, where he tried to focus on 3 types of planning: status, corpus, and acquisition. And actually my paper will be focused on status plus planning of language. So here we can define different types of status of different languages. And this is the Bengali Language Implementation Act of 1987. I'm not going to focus on it, just would like to say that if any person puts forward an appeal or petition at any of the institution mentions the subsection any other language than Bengali, it will be considered as illegal. But the fact is that this law, though that was passed by the parliament in 1987, but still we do not find any implementation of this law. So from the government can revive the law to have to make the policy permanent. So here in my article I also try to comment on 2 functions of Bangla Academy and the International Language Mother Language Center. So look at here, Bangla Academy was founded in 1955, though British Council in Bangladesh was founded in 1951 in the then East Pakistan. So within a very short time. And the function of Bangla Academy is to foster the Bengali language, literature, and culture, to develop and implement national language policy, and to do original research in Bengali language. Okay, in 1971, in an article, ex-professor of Dhaka University, Muhammad Abdul Hai, in his article, The Development of Bengali Since the Establishment of Pakistan, tried to define the aims and objectives of Bangla Academy. So look at here, to develop Bengali language and literature. Sorry. To remove the deficiencies.
You have 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. I will try to cover. To remove deficiencies in Bengali, particularly in the field of natural and social sciences as well as the technological subjects, so that Bengali could become the medium of instruction at a higher level. So actually, we couldn't find this reflection in the functions of Bangla Academy. Bangla Academy has 4 divisions. They try to do research, compilation of folklore, and they also hold Ekushe Book Fair and also motivate Bangla language and literature, presenting the Bangla Academy Literary Award, Rabindra Award, and Mazharul Islam Poetry Award. But I think these roles also Bangla Academy can play. That is, they can play in language policy management by taking initiatives for the implementation of Bangla Implementation Act, promoting the use of Bangla through social and electronics media, reforming language in education policy, introducing language policy for digital materials. And also in abroad, they also can function, and that is how we can provide our sense of belongingness even in foreign land. Establishment of Bangla Academy Center in every foreign mission, they should do. Also, we can introduce like ELT, BLT, Bangla language teaching. I have not found these types of activity in anywhere, or even BSL, Bangla as a second language. I don't know whether we have any program like Bangla as second language, or even Bangla as foreign language, BFL, or even TBSOL, like TESOL, teaching Bangla to the speakers of other languages. So why don't we do that after 50 years to promote along with our economic advancement? So I think we should have done that. And the role of International Mother Language Institute, actually that was established in 21st February 2010. On decade has passed, and their function is to preserve preservation of languages, but it's still no visible activity we have found. In an article of Fahim Reza Shobon that was published in 21st February 2021, he reviewed in this way that International Mother Language Institute, is it a failed enterprise? So that is because since we are not going to have any visible function. So these are my recommendations to these things, that we have to promote a language policy that must be instrumental in the sense that before independence we have integrative policy, we felt emotionally, but now we have to think it for our practical applications.
So Mr. Nurul, I have to stop you at this point.
Okay, now thank you, sir. So I would like to end with the philosophy of René Descartes, that I think therefore I am. So we have to feel that we belong. So through language, we have to belong everywhere, not only in our land, but in foreign land. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Now I'm going to welcome Ms. Sonika Islam from Eastern University. Her title of presentation is Retreat to Recreate to Redress, Translating and Retelling Text for Nation Building.
Okay. Thank you, dear panel chair. It's a great honor to get an opportunity to share my ideas in this conclave on a dialogic imagination of Bangladesh. It is a timely seminar too, as we are just crossing the first 50 years of our nation state. So my topic is Retreat to Recreate to Redress. So as my previous speaker has said, that there is a lot of things to do after even after 50 years have passed. So what is the connection among nationalism and language? So Eric Hobsbawm says in his essay, Language, Culture and National Identity, that solid settlement by one language group and local or even regional government would be substantially conducted in what was called the language of common use. So you have a nation or a government, you have to have a language of common use. Another thing is for nationalism. Ernest Gellner says that nationalism is primarily a political principle which holds that the political and the national image should be congruent. So according to Gellner, the real history of a nation only begins when it acquires its own state. So from 1952 we had 1971, and fast forward after 50 years, we have this haunting questions which actually prompted me to write this paper. What makes us, all of us, with the differences, not only the Bengali speaking people, but the others as well, what makes us a nation? What sort of history we are creating? What language should we speak to be a nation together? What about the speakers of the other languages living in this nation along with us? So the outcome from this conclave can only be fruitful if we have a government which will be willing to make changes to create a history of its own. And it is very important we ask questions. Now that we have a nation with our own state language, what sort of nation we are, and should we make some changes to reach our definitions of the goals about us? So mass literacy is very important for nation building. International Literacy Day, which we translate as Untitled Chapter. So sometimes I jokingly said it has become Antarjatik Sakorata Divoj as International Signature Day, because it is very horrifying to see that many villagers can spell out the name, because that is what they have learned from NGOs or government agencies, but they cannot read what they are signing. So they are now much easier trapped than the time when they were just giving fingerprints. And in general, we have two complaints. Young people do not read, not even Bangla books, and Bangla is not the medium of higher education or office. So my first proposal out of 3 translation of books on world knowledge into Bangla. Goethe remarks that if in translation one remains too close to the original, then he will lose the originality of his nation. And Goethe appreciates it, saying that such inclusion of foreignness in one's own language will only benefit the language of the nation. It will be only, there's a spelling mistake. So he further stresses his point, saying, as Quran says, a prophet is sent to every nation, and every translator is a prophet to that nation. So let's see how some translated prophets have changed the course of history for some nations. First, we can mention how Buddhism flourished in China from 5th to 8th century. The Chinese pilgrims came to India, translated back the Sanskrit and Sanskrit into Chinese language and took back to China. And this is how Buddhism was established in China. Then Arab scholars translated Greek, Pahlavi, and Sanskrit texts into Arabic during Islamic Golden Age from 8th to 11th century. One of my first historical personalities is King Alfred, though we read read him in history courses, but I think he should be included in all literature and translation courses. He changed the fate of English people by collecting and documenting English oral literature and took the decision of translating various texts from Latin and Greek into vernacular English medium to teach the mass people of Britain. And the birth of English Anglo-Saxon nationalists or English ideology also started with him. King Alfred gave a jewel engraved gold marker to his scribes for translating Latin texts into vernacular English as a source of motivation for the scribes. Then in 12th century, Europeans started translating Latin texts, which later promoted the European Renaissance, and they were translating many Arabic texts from Islamic Golden Age into Latin, and that is how European Renaissance started. However, I am not really discouraging translators in English, but what I am just saying that some of the translators are still known as betrayers of their nations. For example, Squanto, who translated into English and which helped the Europeans to conquer America, the America that we see now. And Marino, she was a good interpreter, and she helped the Spanish conquistadors to win the conquest. And after so many years, centuries, sometimes they are still remembered as betrayers. So more often we interpret in English or translate it into English, but I think we have to translate into Bangla more. Translation can enrich Bangla. Goethe remarks, if the translation one remains too close to the origin, then he will lose the originality of his nation. But he says that this inclusion of new ideas is good because he incorporated ideas of Kalidas's Shakuntola into his magnum opus.
Ms. Monica Islam, you have 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. So my second proposal is to publish the canonical literature by appropriating for children and middle grades. It will introduce canons to the children, and it will also familiarize them with the rich culture of our nation. So when we have our university students who do not read, we complain that they do not read, but they will be much more prepared before they enter our university classes. However, we need educational experts to publish these sorts of books. My third proposal is that we have to publish indigenous tribal books bilingually because, many tribes have forgotten their languages and it is great, but they know Bangla very well. So even if they are trying to revive back their language, they need language experts. So bilingual texts will help them. But however, there are problems of multilingualism as well. So Soyed Mojesam said in one of the conferences that it creates a loss of linguistic homeliness. Zoya Azadua also says that if you attack my native tongue, it's like attacking you. And Foreign says lots of things from mother language. And he says the fact that we see lots of college or student ranks in universities, that happens because they were inhibited to use their mother language when they started learning vocabulary. So there are also other benefits in investigating mother language because this will create a social difference to combat propaganda against the nation state. We have all the books in Bangla. So what an American is saying, we won't judge it blindly. We will have the books to go to. And our goal to ensure Bangla everywhere will be fulfilled as well. So Multis Gentibus, where this is my last slide, is an ancient Roman motto which says that strength comes from many different people. So accumulating small languages will ensure the modern definition of state. So if you are part of UN, you have to have some ideas of the modern state. So this will happen automatically if we promote the mother language of other communities as well. And who knows, someone maybe after years, centuries will write that Bengalis were a great nation. And the last word, so we have always seen that people do not want to write in Bangla, translate into Bangla, they do not want to learn Bangla because there are no economical benefits. But Hobsbawm and another, as I mentioned earlier, say that this demand for this official language, which will need any.
Ms. Taslima, we are running out of time.
Just can I have 1 second?
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yes. So this demand for using language is not for profit, but just as a demand for recognizing ourselves as Bengali state. That's the period, and that's how I want to stop my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Taslima, for your presentation. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. MD Nurul Qayyum from Bangladesh Army University of Engineering and Technology, and his title of presentation is "The New Multilingual Dynamics in Bangladesh." Mr. Qayyum.
Yes, sorry for the interruption. I lost my internet connection there. Okay. It's okay now? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, should I start?
Yeah. Please start.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to share my ideas on such a wonderful platform. I think 2 of my slides are probably insensitive considering the recent international political scenario, but they are very incidental to my topic. This picture is from from Rupur in Ishwardi, where the first Bangladeshi nuclear power plant is being constructed with the help of a Russian energy company. If we look back a few years, This place had no charm at all, but now it has become a thriving tourist spot. People come here daily just to look at a gigantic structure which we see only on in TV. I have no idea what the picture says except the mobile number which is written in English. I can only guess that it is a signboard for a saloon by looking at a picture of a supposed Russian with scissors and comb in hands. The next picture has more relatable context, I guess. Still, I don't know the foreign letters. I asked some businessmen there why they have put their signboards in Russian. They casually said that since their chief customers are Russian working the plants, it is customary that they put them that way. It started as a competition among the shopkeepers to attract more foreigners. Along the way, everyone had put Russian signboards and the competition almost came to a standstill. Then some foresighted businessmen started offering language in their service. They started communicating with the Russians in their own language, and the exchange really became smooth with time. Now almost all the local businessmen know some Russian to conduct their business. It really got me thinking. Most of the businessmen have very little formal education, but they still learned a foreign language other than English, which is taught in our school for 12 years. I was amazed to find that only a few of them can use English as a mean of communication, and most of all, they have achieved fluency in English through primary communication with the Russians. What our education system could not do in 12 years, contact with the foreigners and the need, have done that in mere 3 to 5 years. What these businessmen have done reflects the idea that Nobel Peace Prize winning German Chancellor put forward some 50 years ago, quote unquote, if I am selling to you, I speak your language. But if I am buying, dann müssen Sie Deutsch sprechen, meaning then you have to speak German. He meant that customers feel more comfortable when service is provided in their own language. This has a familiar connotation historically. When ancient Silk Route was active, the lingua franca was Sogdian. But still, who knew few other languages flourished more economically than who used interpreters whose native tongue was Sogdian. Sport is one of the chief sources of our foreign reserve, especially RMG sector in Bangladesh is faring well. Although in 2020 we lost our position to Vietnam. I do not mean that language is the reason for this fall, but it might make some difference since not all of our import destinations are English-speaking countries. In fact, most of them are not. Another source of our foreign reserve is remittance. Every year, a good number of Bangladeshis move to other countries in search of work. The desired destination of most of these fortune seekers is the Middle East. The data is a bit old. It is from ILO survey in 2017, but it still depicts a quintessential picture. Two of my relatives have gone to Saudi Arabia as fortune seekers. What I gather from their individual experiences is that the one who has taken the trouble to learn the local tongue is doing better than the other. In the book Lingonomics, What the Market Potential of Multilingualism, visiting professor of Viestas Magnus University, Kansas, USA, Professor Gabriel Hogan Brun has pointed out that language might be a reason for the accidents that occur where migrants from different nationalities gather. They fail to understand the safety protocols written in languages other than their mother tongue. Unfortunately, Arabic is a sort of taboo language in our country for certain reason, but a recent British Council analysis states that Arabic should be one of the most sought after languages in the present era. And we can put that statistics in good use for smooth remittance flow in the future. As I was saying earlier that we could not succeed in making our population use English in the mass scale, although there has never been a lack of endeavors in the national level. English language teaching business has spread like mushrooms everywhere in the country. Although recent fancy of ELT and communicative English is a buzzword among the academicians and businessmen, very little has been achieved through it. One of the main reasons for this failed endeavors lies in how we look at English. Since early childhood, we have been treating it as an academic subject. And thus, we put our students through a series of trauma all throughout their academic life. This situation should have changed when ELT and communicative English teaching was introduced here. But these components are in reality new bottles that still hold old wines. The businessmen in Rupur do not know the intricacies of the new language they are using, but they are doing it just fine. I have some opportunities to talk with some importers in my city who do business with Chinese exporters. Although a good number of them have at least bachelor degree, they were not fluent in English before they started to do business with foreign exporters. Along the way, they have learned Chinese as well and use it instead of English whenever they visit China, and they do it frequently. A very interesting thing happened during COVID-19 pandemic around the world. People have started to learn languages to utilize their isolation period. According to annual statistics of Duolingo, a free language learning platform, the number of users have increased exponentially since 2019. There are other language learning apps for Android and iOS like Rosetta Stone, Mondly, Mango, Lingoda, and many others. In addition to these apps, YouTube offers a lot of materials for learning. According to Duolingo,
Mr. Kayum, you have 2 more minutes.
thank you. According to Duolingo, English is still the most popular language, but if you look at the yellow portion that looks like the map of Bangladesh, you will find that surprisingly, Duolingo users in Bangladesh are going mostly for Spanish. Now, if you look at the chart that specifies the second most popular language, the Bangladeshi portion is blue, indicating the French prominence among the users. People have been learning French and German with much better success than English for higher studies, migration, and just for the love of language and culture. In addition to French and German, people are interested in learning Korean and Japanese since K-drama and anime have been very popular among the new generation for quite a time. We all know that a good number of our citizens understand Hindi and speak them with different fluency. How we understand and use Hindi can be an ideal example of how we should treat English and other languages. A good portion of our populace watch Hindi channels every day. Most of them do not remember when they have started to understand it without difficulty. Daily intake is the key in whatever form it may come. This is also true for the aforementioned businessmen who use Russian or Chinese to conduct their business on regular basis. If we take language out of academic context, only then we can hope to learn them as they are. In fact, people learn better in informal and fluid setting. These instances can be useful to improve the condition of English from primary level since it is an unofficial second language in our country. Language is not a subject, it is just a mean of communication. If we start to treat language as it is, learning anxiety will disappear and learning will become smooth and entertaining. Thank you. That concludes my presentation here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kayum, for your presentation. Now I would like to welcome Ms. Ashwati from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her presentation title is Symbolic Representation of National Identity, Everyday Nationalism in Bangladesh.
Thank you so much. And there is one more interesting aspect to add that I am also working. My PhD thesis is also on Bangladesh only,
All right.
and I have visited Bangladesh in 2019. And
All right.
the reason why I chose the symbolic representation of national identity is because of a very important, memory from the past. When I visited Dhaka, when I devoted Shah Jalalal International Airport, the first picture that came to my mind, which I saw there, was the tile art of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the famous picture from the 10th March 1971. So we have been studying out Bangladesh. So and after that, when you're visiting and going into the interiors of Dhaka, you see many memorials that are associated with 1971, but especially inside the Dhaka University. So this is one of the reasons why I just chose this topic. So let's begin. So nationalism remains one of the most powerful force, even at the what we say that even during this globalization also. Now we are seeing what is happening in Ukraine, the war between Russia and Ukraine and all. Now we see that the spirit of nationalism there in itself. So nation is created through agreements and disagreements. It also entails a sense of belonging. But when a nation is formed in the nation and state building process, when a new nation is formed, what entails is the what we call the nation building process involves the so which symbols are to be used to represent that nation, how such symbols become the part of the everyday life of an individual. Let's say every day we see the flags waving, wherever placed in any buildings or anywhere in schools or wherever we see. Then after the coins, the bank notes, and many other things which actually come to us in a daily basis, and that actually tells us that our sense of belonging to that nation. But there is one more interesting aspect that national symbols are powerful imageries that remind the citizens of their glorious past, instill the sense of pride and sense of belonging. But we chose certain events of past as necessary in the narrative formation. And just like in India, when there is a kind of a nowadays like the Congress versus BJP in my country, the Congress always try to project their contribution during the nationalist movement during after from 1857 for till 1947, whatever their contribution was there. From 1885 we can say that their form after the formation what they did. But on the other hand, BJP, it is trying to revive the ancient past of India, the pride, the glorious past. So there is a difference how you are actually choosing the memories as well. So national narratives often serve the contemporary political interest also of particular political parties. They use it for their own purposes. So it also entails selective exclusion as well. So from the theoretical aspect, where we can move to the Benedict Anderson, who brought forth a new terrain of investigation on the question of what and when is a nation. But a way forward was done by Michael Billig in his book on banal nationalism, where he threw open a new debate on how national symbols are the unreflexive reminders of nationhood and belonging. So the such symbolic representation can be found in coins, banknotes, building styles, flag, vice versa. So now the question is like when we are coming to Bangladesh national flag, it in itself represents the nationalist struggle 1971 war. Then after the national anthem, Namar Shonar Bangla, that is also a song that was close to the Mukti Bahini, and later it became part of the national. It became the national anthem. So in a way, what we are saying that in Bangladesh, there are two aspects which I have seen that at one level in Bangladesh history of 1971 war entails the imageries of the victory against the oppression, and secondly you have many aspects of traumatic phase of that war. So it represents both the what we say the tragedy as well as the victory. So these two things actually represented even in the selection of the symbols of that nation during the nation building process. But now when I just come to the contradictions, the basically what sort of contradictions have come forth, which I have seen is like after the formation of Bangladesh, immediately after the assassination of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, there was an attempt to delve into a new form of nationalism, which actually what in academics we say the secular nationalism versus the religion-backed nationalism, which is more a right-wing nationalism is the second part. So with that also, the politics came over, like who represents the nation well, who represents. So for the people, for the masses, the elite has to decide that who is your national hero. And so in 1996, after Sheikh Hasina came to power, the very first thing what she did was in 1996 she came up with an idea to commemorate 15th August as a national mourn day, so that to remember the assassination of the great father of the nation. So this was a way which was actually even what we say BNP later also had issues over it. And I was part of in 2015 at the High Commission of Bangladesh in Delhi. I did attend the National Monday, and I saw there were many representatives like a film there was a film was played that about the 1971 war and all. But um, there has been a kind of after 1990, we have seen that in Bangladesh polity, there was a kind of a mismatch, a contradiction that was developed at the state level. What I say, the government, that okay, who is to be the hero? So this was the first way how you commemorate Sheikh Mujibur Rahman through the National Monday. That was the first thing. But the second thing, which came recently, was the plan to remove Ziaur Rahman's grave from the Chandrima Udyan, and that idea was actually made by the Ministry of Liberation War Affairs, and it was actually. The idea was there for the past many years, and it recently came up, and BNP has warned about the consequences of doing the same. But and as well as the Ministry of Liberation War Affairs also came up with the idea that the gallantry title Bir Uttam will be removed from the Zia's name, as well as the wartime sector commander title also. So this is at one level what we are witnessing, like who is to be the hero of 1971 war. So this is at one level, but on the other hand, we have another problem that is bringing up in Bangladesh, and that is the rise of the militants, and as well as the rise of the right-wing politics in Bangladesh after 2000 itself, which we saw that groups like Hifazat-e-Islam, who have actually made in before that, even Jamaat-e-Islami also in the 2003 report also they said that there is need for a kind of bringing more Islamic cultural norms to the polity, bringing more like Amashunar Bangla to be replaced by some that song from the Quran, and not song or some verses from Quran. Then after Hifazat-e-Islam also made a kind of a 13-point demand in 2013, that one was to stop turning Dhaka, the city of mosque, into a city of idols, stop setting up sculptures at intersections
Ms.
for
Ashwati, you have 2 more minutes.
yeah. So basically, then after in 2017, they come up with a controversial thing that okay, there should be a the goddess of justice, the statue, the goddess of justice, to be removed from outside the Supreme Court, and it was actually done, and it was lauded by the Hifazat-e-Islam. But it also brought into question of that Sheikh Hasina's commitment to secularism. So what I'm here trying to say is that the symbolic representation of nationalism, which is actually coming to which is representing different contradictions within Bangladesh. At one level, you want the Bangladesh want a kind of a what we say 1971 war to be given its proper due, it should be respected. But on the other hand, there are conservative groups which were actually the collaborators during the 1971 war, are actually trying to what we say sabotage and eclipse the secular principles, which were one among the 4 founding principles of Bangladesh. So here I decided I conclude my presentation. So this is what my understanding about the symbolic representation of national identity, which is going through changes in accordance to the time and context. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashwati. Thanks for your presentation. You have rightly pointed out, two very most prominent narratives that we have here locally. Even after 50 years of independence, we could not settle down these important issues, important questions of history. So that's why actually these parallel narratives actually evolved here in Bangladesh. Thanks for your presentation. Now I'll open the platform for Q&A session. If anyone wants to ask anything to our presenters, you can ask. Meanwhile, I saw there is a question here, perhaps for you. Mr. Nurul Qayyum has asked,
Yes.
who will be? No, it's not you. Perhaps you have asked, right?
No,
Who will
someone
be the
asked me.
patron? Okay, who will be the patron of multiculturalism?
Well, right now it has to be done individually or institutionally, but government has initiated a project to establish 339 training colleges in upazilas, and they have English as a curriculum there. So government can, if they want, they can add a few more languages, prioritizing the target countries. Then we can do it nationally.
All right. All right. Any other comments or questions for
Hello.
our presenters? Yes.
Hello, this is Fazilatun Nasamitu. I have a question to Mohammad Nuruzzaman.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, pastly you described that we should enliven the Bengali nationalism throughout the language policy. So I have a question that do you think that multicultural attitude is actually the reasons of now lack of nationalism? Or
Uh,
like,
okay, thank you, Fadilatun Nessa. Uh, um, so because of globalization and this cultural intrusion, it is supposed to have the new generation. They have, attitudes to multiculturalism. That is, we cannot deny that. But the fact is that we also should include, as I have tried to focus on that, this language that must not be, discarded from our sense of belongingness. We have to represent, as an identity everywhere, not only in our land but in foreign land. That we have to represent ourselves. In other words, if I consider with the Indian representative that who has focused on symbolic representation. So it is the most powerful symbol that we have, and I don't think that it will change with the changes of time, as she has pointed out that okay, many things changes, but this is the only thing that can unite along with our controversies of politics or other things. So the question that you have asked, the answer is, I should say, in the affirmative, yes. That is a problem because of globalization, but we have to change our attitude towards it. And I think framing a policy which must be instrumental policy, we have to think, I have said two things: integrative policy, based on our emotions, attachment, many more things that actually used to have before our independence. But after the independence, because of the rise of capitalism, globalization, to some extent we are instrumentally motivated. And I think another presenter who has tried to focus on that, the rise of Russian language in especially northern districts. So that is also because people are instrumentally motivated. They would like to have that because of this and that. So I think it is time we have to rethink about our policy of language. Okay. I don't know whether I have convinced you or not. Have you convinced, Ms. Polita?
yes, sir. And now I think that yes, that this type of attitude is. I think this type of attitude is slightly correct, but we need to actually think that in a different way. That in that globalization or in that capitalized life, we should think our own nation and we should think our own identity. I think that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. Any other queries or questions or comment even?
Sir,
No
I
more
have
questions?
another question.
Yeah, sure. Please go on.
Okay, so now I want to ask Sonika Islam, the second presenter, if she there.
Yes. Yes, I'm there.
Okay. Ma'am, I have a question that you say that I also believe that knowledge acquiring is a great thing. And by reading book, we can build ourselves and we can build our nation. So you say that we should recreate and retell our own stories. So I know that we have a very enriched and very polished and mythologically we had a great we have actually a great culture. But now at that time we should retelling those things because in that era, obviously for the globalization, that our own students or own children doesn't know about that Moymunsinho Gitika or the many things of our own mythological concept, but they are really used to know about the Greek, Roman, or something, the European mythological aspect. So there are many students in English version, they know about the Shakespeare tales, the Lamb's tales, but they don't know about our own culture. So when we are talking about or creating or recreate those um, English literature into Bangla literature, again, I say that this is a great thing. But when we recreated more and more, so what do you think that it doesn't diminish our own culture, or rather than we should retell our culture or recreate our own culture to the students that they can enrich themselves?
Yes, my second proposal was, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
So my second proposal was to retell Rabindranath Tagore's books, like a fairy tale for kids or for children. So that was my idea. So what they are doing, what West or English-speaking countries are doing for their canonical writers, for Shakespeare, for Jane Austen, we have to do the same thing for Mohinshin Deepika and Rabindranath, Sharatchandra. And there are some wonderful stories which can be easily told to our kids. So I think that was what I meant in my presentation. But yes, you are right. We are I went to bookshops just for my project, and there I haven't seen one single pictured book on Mohinshin Deepika or any of our old mythologies or our own literature. But there are lots of Bangla translations of Cinderella. Then even Shakespeare's tales are being translated by Panjiri, I think, for young kids, right? So if we are retelling their tales, the English writers or other world literature, then why don't we do it for our own language and literature? That was what my point. Thank you, President. So have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. I also say that the same thing. We should retelling our
Yeah.
young generation that we have a enriched culture. But
Yes.
what about the recreate their books into, or recreate their, or we should translate their books?
Translate there means the English speaking writers or English writers or our
Yeah, like a Cinderella, as you say, the Cinderella or Snow White, and
I know.
we,
This is like I have raised 2 points. I think which can create debates. One is like I want my country people to focus more on Bangla translations, the way other did. So as Goethe said that the translators can be prophets for one nation when you bring in world knowledge into your own language. And my second debate was that I prefer you publish more books on your own culture and heritage. Cinderella is there. Cinderella will be there. I don't have any problems with Cinderella. But if they do not know Mohua and then they are in university or when they are projecting or representing their countries, and if we elders say that, oh, our young people do not know anything, then we have to take the blame on us because we haven't introduced them to our rich culture when they were really young. So my first exposure to Shakespeare was when I was in class 1, but that's because I studied in English medium schools. So that is how I want my class 1 kids to know Rabindranath. So for example, Noka Dubi can be retold in a very fairy tale way, almost like a Disney tale. So there are lots of fairy tale elements in Noka Dubi. So you make it appropriate for kids, and that is what I was saying, that in other countries, especially in America and in many other European countries, people do researches on children's education and children's literature. We don't have that yet. Still, I have friends who did their master's thesis on children's literature. There are people who love to write books for literature, so they can sit with education professionals and try to come up with ideas. How can we appropriate Rabindranath Tagore's text or Nazrul into a text which can be read and understood by children. That is how we are going to, like, you cannot, if, you cannot bring the river to a horse, so you take the horse to the river. That is how the scholars of children's for Shakespeare say that this is how you bring Shakespeare to the text. And this is how we have to bring Rabindranath or other national writers to our kids. And I personally feel, so when I went to bookshops, I haven't found one single book for Bangladeshi people, Bengali people, like with these colorful paintings, etc. And there was not a single book either in indigenous language or books on indigenous folktales, etc. But we have many indigenous students here, and we fought for our mother language in 1952. So that was my question. The question haunts me. So if I'm a Bengali, what I am doing with the people of other language, small languages.
Yeah.
So we have to bring books for those kids as well. And it is possible. So if you write 10 books for Bangla or English for Cinderella, like at least one book for indigenous people, one book on national canonical writers. That was my point.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hanika. It's wonderfully explained. In fact, it's very important. Translation is, you have discussed about literature, the role of translation in literature. It's very important for nation building. Translation, we need to translate science and technology and engineering books into Bangla as well. So the role of translation in nation building is, we need to acknowledge it's high time. All right. And the other thing is our national policy of 2010. It actually it actually encouraged that we should translate more books
The
into
government
Bangla.
is giving extra facilities for translators. Every year they send notices to universities that if you have translated any books on education or anything, so give that manuscript to the government and you will be prized for that or something like that. So it's good.
It's good, yeah. In fact, that's good. Okay, if there is no other questions or queries, we can wrap our session here.